Real pleasure to have with us and at the lectern Alex Aitken, Executive Director of Government Communications for the UK government. Alex is an influential figure in government comms, always ready to meet with colleague comms professionals from around Europe. I know he wants to share with us today a sense of how he feels you're winning the game.
Thank you very much, Barry. It's an absolute delight and pleasure to be here at the AMEC conference in front of you, and I hope that what I am going to say today is going to change your behaviour in terms of the way that you approach measurement. I hope that those who represent in-house teams will be reinforced in their desire to make measurement mainstream and win the game. I hope those who work for consultancies will stop compromising on whether measurement and evaluation and the insight that flows from that is an essential part of the package and say it must be part of the package if you want first-class communications. And I hope that those who work in other parts of the industry and for measurement and evaluation companies, I hope this will reinforce and show you how you can win more business, how you can be more influential, how, as Stuart in the first session said, actually you can demonstrate how commercial objectives can become a social good through the application of great insight to commercial products. So, absolute delight to be here in Sweden, in Stockholm, and in front of you at AMEC, and I'm grateful to Barry for the invitation. I suppose there is a danger, given that people are turning up late, that some of you think it's maybe a very dull speech. This is possible. What can I do about that? I could offer you love, but that would be inappropriate. I could offer you money, but as you know, the British government is still borrowing £88 billion a year, so we don't have a lot of that. But I did go to Lidl earlier. We shop at Lidl now because we can't afford the upmarket supermarket. So if you're feeling a bit bored during this speech, for the boys over there, I have some cola bottles. Anyone like toffee? Oh yeah, there we go. You are encouraged to share them. Now, those are known brands. If we've got any of the early adopters or innovators out there, I don't know what Glot and Blandat will do to you, so they're headed over in that direction. I did, because there's going to be some sort of upwardly mobile types who just like the flag of liberty and jelly beans, can go over there. Well caught, sir. What else have we got? I don't like the look of foam fruits. Bit dodgy, but so is the right hand of the audience. Great catch. Those guys over there look fruity. By some accident, probably because they were cheap, which tells you something. Don't buy cheap stuff, it doesn't work. I want you to evaluate these as you're eating them. There's some more foam fruits, so I missed that one. And who's looking a bit sour? Yeah, oh yeah, Paul and Joko is. Sour fruits. Why would you call a sweet product sour fruit? Now, part of what I want you to do today is join the Government Communications Service of the UK. Why wouldn't you? We spend £550 million a year hoping to provide timely, relevant public information that will save or improve lives. We have 4,000 staff all around the world. We have the traditional media officers who operate where I work in number 10 Downing Street. We also, to demonstrate our scope, we have the lady who's the press attaché for the UK embassy in Hanoi in Vietnam. And if you ever think you have tough jobs, then imagine what it is like being a locally employed Vietnamese, employed by a foreign government, the British government, working to promote British prosperity and security in an autocratic but, broadly friendly state. That's quite a tough communications role. 4,000 staff, 550 million spend. And when I say you can join the UK Government Communications Service, I mean that. It's very simple. In these days of digital network, social worlds, all you have to do is go onto the GCS website, press the button to be an affiliate member, and you get the information that we provide. Because I genuinely believe that in terms of the way we do communications, the ability to co-opt your brains, your expertise, the ability of me to get you to help serve with us and work with us, to take up secondments with us, for our staff to take up secondments with you, wherever in the world you come from, is a crucial part of what we are about. And if you want to see how that is formally expressed, and also to give you an insight into the way that the UK government is approaching policy and communications in the digital world, just Google GDS, that's Government Digital Service, but GDS Design Principles. And these extraordinary principles, which have revolutionised our approach to digital, to policy, in terms of open policy making, communications as well, start with rule number 1, which is start with user need. And it goes on to talk about iterating and building. It's moving communications and policy from the world of Moses and tablets of stone, and this is the solution, this will work, the extraordinary world of let's go and try some stuff and see if it works. And it might not work. We might have to do it differently. We might have to do something else and see if that works. But we will build on it and we'll be persistent. We'll try and we'll fail fast and we will iterate and we will develop what we do. And that, in a sense, is the success, is the secret of the success we have had in making measurement mainstream. So communications in the UK government, this huge monster that spends £700 billion a year, can go and invade places, though generally not our friends, can move all sorts of international things, does great things around the world, spending money on aid and development. But this is how we have made communications into a leading profession, because we have put evaluation at the heart of what we do. And we said, we'll learn by doing, we'll test, some things won't always work, but we will build on that. Now, you're welcome to come and talk to me about that after the event, but clearly I'm far too important, far too busy, and probably slightly too scary for you to wish to do that. And I'm actually only here for a day, which is a real shame. But when Barry asked me to come and speak, I said, look, I'd be delighted to, but I suspect that the UK government will be in the throes of forming a coalition, because that's what all the opinion pollsters and the measurement people tell us. Anyone here do opinion polls? Well, no one's admitting to it. Funny that. So for those of you who are not part of the European heartland, you know, the UK opinion polls predicted there'd be a terribly hung parliament. So I thought the most I could get away with was sort of 12 hours out of London, as we'd be forming a coalition and then norming a government and all that stuff. The polls were wrong, which is a lesson for the measurement industry. And we have a strong and stable government, which was elected under Prime Minister David Cameron. So while I'm here, I'd be absolutely happy to talk to you. I'm sorry I'm missing the awards tomorrow night. There's some terrific nominations, including ones from the UK Public Service, the Department of Health on Ebola, and the fighting cancer submission from Public Health England. But I have some colleagues. Sarah, just give us a wave or something. Sarah's Department of Health, where she's one of the evaluation leads. So if you want to know more about what we're doing, talk to Sarah. If you like the look of Sarah, or perhaps don't like the look of Sarah, you can always talk to Paul. There's Paul, who heads evaluation for the GCS. Where's Elaine? Elaine also works for us. So there are colleagues, and Elaine does some great work on AMEC as well. We also, I'm going to talk about this later, but we have an evaluation council, and some of you will see that in operation later, but people like Richard Bagnall and Jim McMara are part of that, and they can also help amplify or perhaps explain some of the nonsense that I am talking. There is a risk at some point I'm going to get onto the slides, but I wouldn't count on it. Anyway, you may be more interested in the sweets than the... do we like the cola bottles? Yes, okay. Do we like the toffees? Yeah. Yeah, well, the toffees are winning the evaluation game thus far. So last year I came here and I said, look, we are going to renew our media monitoring because we need to update our media monitoring. I want to put more media monitoring into the private sector. The wheels of government churned slowly, and I can announce today that we do have, the UK government does have a new media monitoring framework in place, which has been shaped by you, because the Evaluation Council I referred to earlier, we've used that to shape the contracts that we've let, and I'd like to congratulate for our media monitoring and evaluation framework, Gorkana, Precise, Press Data, and Prime Research. And on social media monitoring, Gorkana again, Precise again, LexisNexis, and then 2 UK SMEs, Meltwater and Reactive, I think. I can't read my own writing. But, you know, well done to those companies. We look forward to working with you over the term of the contract. But it is really, really important that you and anyone else who works with government or anything sets the highest standards. And my cautionary warning after saying congratulations, we are making measurement mainstream in UK government communications, and the biggest department is the Department for Work and Pensions. They do pensions and benefits, and they do this brilliant dashboard about their impact every month. They talk about all the media coverage, the social tone. They talk about top kills, which are the number of negative stories where people are just trying to mislead or misbrief that they've managed to stop happening. And I said, right, I want to take this dashboard to AMEC and give it out to the audience. And I was told, look, we'd love to have it because we should have the May dashboard by now because it's the 3rd of June. But the service level agreement with our monitoring company says that they'll only provide the raw data, not the human evaluation, but the raw data, 7 to 10 days after the end of the month. As a quiet word with the industry, I'd say, that's just not simply good enough, right? I need you to be on the ball. You know we live in a 24/7 culture. We know we need data now. And if we get the data now, I can get the data to the ministers, and the ministers will go, oh, that's clever, and that's useful, and communications has a proper and important impact. One, fundamentally interested consumer of measurement and evaluation in the UK government, his name is David Cameron. And it's really, really interesting for me that he is the person who each month looks to see what the Great Campaign, which is the major UK trade and investment campaign, has done, looks to see in numbers, not in terms of press cuts, but in numbers, how well what he's been saying and the visits he's making have gone down across the UK. And you sort of stop and think, if ever you struggle with your clients and they say they're not interested in measurement, they're not interested in numbers, they sort of prefer, creative, SH1T and all that stuff. It's like, no, the people who really get it, who have the real tough jobs, know the measurement and evaluation that you provide is absolutely critical to our work. I think that's enough from me. I'm sort of slightly bored. Why don't you have a chat to your neighbour? If you don't like your neighbour, or the person on your left, they sort of, I don't know, do you see the thing about the Member of Parliament sitting next to another Member of Parliament in the UK Parliament? One Member of Parliament farts, and the other Member of Parliament's caught on camera, danger of social media. So you may like the person to your left. If you don't, the person to your right, you're antisocial, talk to the person behind you. But, I've told you broadly what I do. We've made measurement mainstream. We're a big beast. It's the UK government. So if we can do it, why can't your clients and organisations? What sort of questions would you want to ask me? So just have a chat to the person next to you, and then I'm going to pick on some people, probably the boys in the back row, because they're the ones who are getting all snug and hoping that they won't be included in this session. And see, how can I'm a public servant, so my purpose in life is to help you. I serve you as a UK public servant, as part of the European Union, as part of the world community. So how can I help you? You're only going to have sort of 60 seconds to have the conversation, then you might get picked on. So you better come up with a good question, otherwise you'll look a bit dim in front of all your peers, which is not great for business, is it? Okay, over to you. All right, so time is pressing on. We're running out of time. Right, the good-looking gentleman with the glasses on his head, talking to his neighbour in the back row. Yes, you, sir. What were you and your clearly articulate, capable, intelligent, good-looking colleagues discussing?
We're discussing.
Yeah, just shout.
Yes,
I do.
We're discussing how it's possible that only after 7 days, after the end of the month, you're getting your analysis. It sounds very strange to me.
Yeah. So you're saying it's surprising only 7 days? It's too long, absolutely too long. I mean, we demand now that people do monthly evaluation and get it immediately after the end of the month. But of course, we do a lot of daily work. And anyone who's interested in the UK Government Comms Challenge today, these are basically paper dashboards, and I want to develop quickly a digital dashboard so we can show ministers and chief executives and so on what is happening, how their press releases are being used, media sentiment, as it goes. My vision of the future is a comms team that is just defined by digital dashboards showing what is going on immediately. Good points. Right, the far right. What do the far right think of? Any thoughts from you? Yes, please. Yeah. Oh, we're going to, yeah. Yeah.
Is happiness a key outcome measure? And if so, what are your learnings on the drivers of happiness?
Saving, improving, enriching lives are the mission of government communications, and that is because unless I focus people on those really clear outcomes, they just become people who churn the handle and produce press releases or internal comms stuff. There's a lot of work being done in terms of measuring happiness by the UK government. I am sceptical at how effective it is. I think the point I would make to you is, look, if we can focus communicators and business and organisations on social good, actual business one, or in my case, saving or improving lives, there is some disconnect with how well you can measure that. But by trying to work out, as you'll see from the Clear on Cancer campaign and some of the things about how that's best done, we do begin to make progress towards our goals. It's a short answer to a good question, but I'm having to pick that up later. One more. Anyone got anything before I try and run through some of these slides? Yes, sir.
I'll check.
Yeah.
Do you track the communications works that other parties are doing in the UK, and even taking examples from maybe the US or other countries globally?
I'll come back to that in a moment, if I may. You can see what's on the screen, and you're all highly intelligent people, and I'm not going to go into that in detail. Just note, we have an evaluation council, Richard Bagnall, Jim, and lots of other good guys, David Rockland from New York, couldn't be here today, but they are the people who provide us with peer review and challenge. External people kicking and challenging and supporting the UK government. The governance and process, that's one of our evaluation hubs that exist in all the departments. The work that Paul and Elaine and Sarah and others do, the standards and tools and the training that's available. To answer the question about how we learn from others, this was the biggest challenge we've had over the last year. Part of your country wants to break away. What are you going to do about it? And this was where measurement and evaluation really came to the fore, because we were trying to work out what was happening. 199 of the 200 newspapers in the UK, in Scotland, were in favour of staying in the Union. But the number of people who wanted to vote to leave the Union was increasing. And by really interrogating the data and by using data properly, and it's a moment of crisis like this that people do turn to the data, we discovered the obvious fact that a lot of the people who needed to be shown the benefits of the UK weren't reading newspapers anymore, weren't even watching television news, and that's where we drove towards Facebook. And certainly we do look to other countries, less so political parties, but other countries in terms of what we do, and I'm happy to explain that in more detail afterwards. How do we eat elephant? Piece by piece, but I'd rather talk about football. Does anyone know about Prozone? Yeah, no, it's really important story. Buy a back copy of Wired, read the full story, the sort of 45-second version. Prozone actually stands for Professional Zone, and started off with a football club in the south of England, sitting all their players in massage chairs after the game, watching a replay of the game, trying to understand it. And it's developed over the years into this fantastic tool for analysing the performance of games, which has now been adopted by all the top football teams. But if you read the trial and error they went through, and they had tons of data, and they went down dead ends with the data, and they, too much data provides too little insight and so on. But by trialling and iterating and developing it, they finally developed an approach which worked and has provided success for the teams who adopt it, and actually improved the way that association football is played all around the world. But I'm really offering you this story because it's about persistence. UK government communications plan underpinned by data. Those are the four things that we do. And if you're going to measure stuff, you need to be clear about what we do. And that's our core purpose. Everyone many people are now doing evaluation in the UK government. You've got to work out whether you're on the left side of the screen or the right side of the screen, because I think where we have got to is here, and I hope I've illustrated that during this speech. But there are too many of you in red committing the 7 deadly sins of measurement and evaluation, and doing it badly, just in time for awards, saying you can't measure stuff, not systematic, and not sharing the learning. Part of what the fact that we've been able to impose a requirement to measure and evaluate on our 4,000 staff is about sharing the learning, which embeds best practice. We still have a way to go. A bowler's up for an award tomorrow, Clear on Cancer, so you can read about those. but we're using our evaluation council. And the interesting thing about the evaluation council, they still say, as Stuart said this morning, the evaluation's interesting, there's lots of stuff, you've really got to focus on your objectives. I'm going to finish on GREAT. I'm going to finish on GREAT partly because on Friday, the National Audit Office, which is the government agency in the UK which measures the way we spend money, is doing a report on the GREAT campaign. This is the GREAT campaign. It's the UK campaign that brings together all government agencies to promote British trade, tourism, education around the world. We've spent over the last 2 years £90 million, that's about 100 and something million euros, and we have delivered £1 billion of benefit for the UK. And we can measure that quarter by quarter. An example of the dashboard there, the slides will be available afterwards, and some of the collateral. There's 60 great events around the world every month. The National Audit Office has done this report. It's published on Friday, so I can't tell you what's in it because we'll be breaking the embargo. But have a look at it, because it's a proper financial analysis of a government, of a communications campaign, and I think has some interesting learning for all of us. But the fact that a National Audit Office shows an interest in the communications campaign, I think is of interest in itself. This is not easy, as I say there. We've still got a lot to do in terms of making measurement mainstream and winning the game. But the point is, I think the point I'd finish with is it's up to all of us. We're all in our way leaders, and whatever level you are at in your organisation, leadership is about taking responsibility for setting the highest standards. You know, I do 3 things. I do the government communications strategy, I do the management of the number 10 Cabinet Office comms operation, and I also do the head of profession role. And head of the communications profession means taking best practice and making it the standard of our work, making it efficient and effective. The leadership role that you can have and play is to go from here today and say, look, if the UK government can do this, and we're happy to have those discussions about how we do it in detail, then what is wrong with every commercial, public service or charity organisation achieving this? We have friends in this regard. The sort of proofish point I will finish with. We use the RepTrak survey from the Reputation Institute, shows the reputation of UK public service has increased 3 points over the past 2 years. It's not an end in itself, it's not like winning the Champions League, but it is an indication that we're going in the right direction. And we have friends like Jim McNamara, and you know, there's an oh my God moment when I read his a report on communications about listening. Shock. We talk at people 80% of the time, and we listen 20% of the time, Jim says. And he puts up this architecture of listening. And that I use this to illustrate the fact that persistence and continuing to learn and struggling and working out what's right is why organisations like AMEC remain so important, and why your roles are so critical, be it for commercial success or social good, or as I'm dedicated to, using public service communications and using the evidence and insight that great evaluation can provide to save and improve lives. Thank you.
We're going to take a couple of questions, more questions after that. Who's got the first question for Alex? Okay, front row, please. Ladies in blue, we need to be super fast for this.
My name is Nina Skarbo. I'm coming from DNVGL. I'm just wondering, what would you say, looking back since you started in UK government communications, have been the most important measures that you've done to make measurement and evaluation mainstream for your communications function?
As Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister, said about becoming Prime Minister, he would have done everything faster and been more radical than than when he initially became Prime Minister. There is the UK government communications plan, and we did this plan. It was a lovely plan, and we use it and we stick to it. But it took us a year to get to the stage where we were doing quarterly analysis of the plan, and then a little bit longer. So this sheet, and you don't have to read it, but you can see there's sort of shades of green and red and orange. That gives us on a page the progress of £550 million of spending, the work of 4,000 people, and allows us to track and have a debate about the data. So I can tell you, in interesting this, you may have views on this, that what this plan says is that we have achieved 3/4 of our goals, but our communication staff rate their performance, their professional performance, at 90%. We think we're 90% successful in terms of execution of our work, and 75% successful in terms of outcomes. Now, it'd be daft if it was the other way around, but, you know, I would have done this stuff much quicker, because this is the stuff that gets ministers and chief executives really interested in the work of communications.
Great question. Another question? Anyone want to add to the challenge Alex threw out, that the speed in which firms come back with the reports needs to be quickened up? Anyone want to add to that?
Anyone want the contract?
Hey,
Right.
I want the contract.
Yeah. Good.
And sorry, Barry, for not following your good try for a question. How are you getting ready for the eventual communication regarding the UK leaving European Union?
Well, that happens it's an important question. I mean, that happens in two phases. First, there is a renegotiation, and then there will be a referendum. And that is very much led by the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary, and that's the European Council is coming up later this month. I think that, as a civil servant, is as far as I want to go on that issue today. I'm grateful for the opportunity, but I think I'm going to pass on that.
Okay. I'll take Andy West. I'll take one more question.
Yeah.
No, you need to shout, Andy. It's a very big hall.
Yeah.
How much real-time monitoring do you do?
Everyone hear the question?
Yeah, how much real-time monitoring do we do? Not enough. That's why, I mean, you saw the slide up there about the paper, the performance hub on the wall, and Paul and Joko's led this work. It's great, but inculcating that culture of measurement, and from measurement, evaluation, and then the Prozone example, we've got all this measurement, we've got lots of data. What does it tell us? Insight. Takes time. This is a real professional skill, and it takes time. So actually having the paper on the wall is fine for now, because if we could invent a digital dashboard tomorrow, we're going to go, whoa, this is all a bit. And, you know, I'm proud of the fact that we are beginning to change the minds of ministers, you know, and the Prime Minister is an early adopter, and move away from the huge sheaf of press cuts to, you know, we can produce these sort of documents. You know, this is what great communication is about. It's about efficiency and effectiveness. And what the data tells us on the efficiency side is that we can recruit more teachers, we can save as many lives as on the roads, we can recruit more public service workers at less cost, because we understand the data and the insight. So we've got these paper publications and paper hubs. The digital step is the next one, but I've got to take people with us, which means a huge investment in training, which is why evaluation is a mandatory requirement for training, annual training for government communicators.
We could listen all morning. Alex, thanks a lot for being with us again.
Pleasure,
Thank
Barry.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.